Sure am. So this is the Poalcast mini episode something. I have no idea what number it is. I don't care. So I'm going to tell a story. A
All right, tell the story.
So when, man, how old was I? I don't remember how old I was, but me and my wife, it was quite a few years back. We decided we were going to do something crazy. We were going to move into an RV and travel the country. And we actually bought an RV and moved into it.
How far did you get?
So we moved into this RV, um, and we moved out of our duplex. You know, we downsized an insane amount. I mean, we sold everything. Well, not everything, but we sold a lot of our stuff. Like, we got rid of just everything. And that experience of downsizing, I think, I think it was a pretty positive one because you realize how much stuff you really don't need. Like, stuff you're just hanging on to for no reason.
Yeah, I agree with that. I try to do that as well to just kind of get rid of things.
I'm trying to see if the stream is actually working.
I came on my road trip across the country. I brought a suitcase, and that's about it.
I mean, yeah,
Minimalism is best.
I mean, it was an experience because, you know, I had things I was hanging on to that I thought I needed that, or I thought I wanted. And, you know, when it came down to it, I was like, well, fuck it. I haven't touched this thing in 5 years. Why do I give a shit?
That is true. It's kind of freeing in a way.
I mean, it really was like, it really was. You know, I sold everything I owned almost, you know, like, you know, I kept almost all of my kids' toys. I kept almost all of my wife's clothes. But like for me, I got rid of like everything I had except for my phone, my, you know, a couple laptops, my desktop computer, and, uh, you know, and my tablet. And that was it. And, you know, I had 5 outfits and, you know, that basic technology that I needed to be able to do the things that I do, and that was it. And I was fine. I didn't miss any of it.
It's almost like we don't need all this shit that the kikes want us to buy.
I mean, I don't. I think it's just consumerism in general. You know, like we're assaulted with media our whole lives. Buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, and you know, I think probably somewhere close to at least 90% of it we don't use. Like, or we use it once and we forget about it.
Yeah, a lot of it's just useless clutter, and you never really realize how much you have until you go to either move or to just get rid of a bunch of stuff like that. And I don't know. I highly recommend people do it. And then of course it'll always be things you want to hang on to, but I don't know. There's something to be said for just leaving everything behind and starting fresh.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so we moved into this RV. And the idea was, you know, the RV was a 35-foot long RV. So I mean, it wasn't, you know, it was a tow behind. It wasn't a like a motorhome. It was a trailer. And so the idea was to move it to her parents' driveway because they had a small house that they were renting, but it had a big enough driveway that the RV would fit. And the idea was we were going to modify this sucker to better meet our needs. We were going to, put in, it had a back room, so we were going to move the bed over, to the one wall, the big bed, and then put in bunk beds on the other side for our kids. And then we were going to, get bigger propane tanks so that, and add a generator and, install a big ass inverter so we could run the AC unit and other things off grid, battery bank, all that, blah, 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 blah. Well, we didn't get quite that far. We ended up having to move it again after a few months. And, so the only thing that really got done was the bigger propane tanks installed and the big ass inverter installed and the battery bank, which I still own this RV to this day. So I guess someday I might finish it. But, so we stayed in that for a while. Then we ended up having to move it. Then we ended up in a campground for, we ended up in a campground that was, still in the same state, but it was somewhere we wanted to check out. And, we had made, I don't know, close to $12,000 selling all our stuff. Which is, when you don't have any bills, that's a decent chunk of change.
Yeah, you could get a lot of cocaine for that.
I guess it's,
And hookers. Don't forget the hookers.
where would I put the hookers and cocaine? My RV was already full of my kids and wife stuff.
Well, you take the cocaine while you kill the hooker.
Then where am I going to kill the hooker?
Dude, do I have to do everything for you?
If you're going to come up with what you can do with $12,000 is killing hookers and doing cocaine, yeah, you have to come up with everything.
So you do the cocaine, you go get a hooker, you take her somewhere secluded, you murder her, you dispose of her. The method is your choice. It's dealer's choice.
Well, I chose not to do that. I chose to spend my money on, what experiences I could get. And, so we spent a total of about 8 months doing this, and we never made it out of the state because the truck we got to pull the thing was less than ideal. It was technically rated to pull enough weight, but not really to the point where I was confident it would get us through the mountains, and that's where we would have had to go. So, we basically ended up, we got to a point where we were like, well, we can't continue doing this. So we're going to have to, take what money we have and go back to a traditional life. And her, and her parents had bought another house at this point that they owned instead of rented. And it had a stone slab that we could put the RV on. So we put the RV on that, and we rented an apartment and went back to normal life. But the experiences that we had, like learning how to, deal with limited water and deal with, like we went through like the winter months in a northern state in an RV, like that in and of itself presents unique challenges that were, if nothing else, interesting.
Yeah, man, I can't even imagine. Like, I stayed in a RV camper pull behind thing through the winter here down in Texas, and that was miserable. I can't even imagine what you guys went through.
Well, I guess, I don't know what your winter months are like down there. What's the low temperature?
Well, it gets down there. It'll get down to the teens, but it only rarely snows.
That winter we got down to the worst month. The worst month we had was, and this was right around the time we gave up. It got down to like, I think -10 with wind chill, -20. And so, it's me, my wife, and 2 kids staying in this RV, and we've got we've got propane, and we've got the furnace. So it's not like we don't have heat. But man, the floors, oh, just the floors were absolutely, no matter how high you had the heat set, and you could like, and it would get up like the ambient temperature, you could set it to 80 and you would be sweating, but your feet would feel like they were going to fall off. I mean, it was that, like, the floors were that cold.
Yeah, that deep down cold that no matter how warm it is, that cold from underneath is not going away.
Nope, it's just not. So, you know, then about, halfway through the winter, the furnace goes. And
Oh, fuck.
and it was the middle of the night when it went. I mean, it was just the worst possible time. Like, I thought, like, oh shit, maybe the propane ran out and I just didn't refill it. But I was like, I refilled the tanks 2 days ago, and usually they last 4 days. So, but maybe the tanks are empty. So so I'm like, okay, well, it's middle of the night. So I drove my ass to Walmart, bought 4 electric, like those little plug-in electric heaters, and plugged them in all over the RV and just turned them on high. And I was like, okay, these will be enough. We'll survive because we have lots of blankets. We can all, cuddle up in one bed and it'll be fine. And so we survived that night. And I went and filled up the propane tanks in the morning, and like I suspected, they weren't empty. And the blower motor on the furnace had died.
Damn fucking blower motor, man.
I'm not going to lie, I was pissed. And so, we're like, okay, well, we can't stay here because, we have to do, like, this is game over. This is the, like, there's no more moving forward here. This is game over.
Yeah, I mean, you reach a crossroads then. It's like, how bad do you want to go freaking live in an RV traveling around? Or do you just want to say, fuck the dumb shit?
So I said, okay, well, there's room for you guys at your, I said to my wife, there's room for you guys at your parents. So you go stay there. And I'm pretty sure I can tough this out with an electric heater until we can find with the electric heaters until we can find an apartment. So I toughed it out in there with just those electric heaters and occasionally banging on the furnace. Like, I ended up ripping the couch out so I could get to the furnace, and found that if I hit it just right with a wrench, it would turn on for like an hour and a half. Super good solution.
Yeah, man, I had my blower on my AC in my car one time was going out, and I'd hit it and it'd work.
Blower motors are like that. You hit them and they work. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. You hit niggers to make them work as well.
Anyway, so I toughed that out for like 2 months until we found an apartment we could afford, and I had already gotten a job and started getting paychecks. And so we toughed it out for I toughed it out in there for probably 2 months. But man, that was like, I was immune to the cold when I got done with that. Like, I could literally stand outside with no coat in like 20-degree weather and be like, no, it's comfortable.
Yeah, man, you get fucking acclimatized to that shit.
Like, when we moved into the apartment, my wife would have to set the heat at like 68 because it was still winter. And I'd be like, God, why do you set it so hot? And I would go stand outside to cool off. I mean, it was just the amount of resistance to cold I had after that experience was just stupid.
Yeah, it's funny.
It definitely shows the adaptability of the human body. Like, we can survive a lot more than we think we can.
It's true. You never know what you can what you can stand until you're forced to go through something.
It's why I think, like, the people in like the hot climates, like I guess like you get close to the equator, and people from the not so from the northern part of the country like me, we think, oh my God, 110 degrees is like unbearably hot. I would die. And no, if you gave it 6 months, you wouldn't.
Yeah, your first summer is always the worst, and then you get used to it. Just like anywhere. Like I moved up to Maine for fucking 3 years and lived up in there was snow on the ground for 5 months out of the year, and dude, I got used to that. I would by the end of it, like you, I'd walk around and fucking, oh, it's 30 degrees outside today. Damn, it's a nice day.
I don't need a coat.
Yeah, I'd be walking around in shorts and shit, and like, oh, people, I'd ride the bus, and people like, oh, you must be from here. I see you're wearing the shorts. I'm like, no, I just kind of used to it now.
Yeah, no, that just was the most profound time in my life. I realized like I've been from here for a long time, so I've always been okay with the winter, but like I guess that would taught me just how far you can push that a adaptability that the human body has. And I guess I don't even really know how far you can push it. Maybe you can push it farther. I mean, there's that Iceman guy.
Yeah, Iceman.
The guy that like ran the marathon in the Arctic in nothing but shorts.
So is this why the cold doesn't kill the homeless off like it used to?
Yeah, they're just getting used to it. And yeah.
Probably. I mean, honestly, adaptation takes place over time.
So is there still a lot of homeless people up there in the Great White North?
No, not as many as there used to be. It's actually becoming less of a problem, which is rather surprising to me.
It's like people are going back to work and the economy's doing good. What the fuck?
No, man, in Washington, like the closer you got to the liberal centers, there was literal encampments that they'd, plow over with bulldozers, but they'd just come back like the cockroaches that they are.
Well, I mean, you haven't been there for a little while, and on top of that, at least where I am, there are more jobs than there are people to do them, and we are seeing a drop in the number of homeless people, and we are seeing wages going up. We are seeing it's not as fast as everybody would like, but it is happening.
Yeah,
Slow and
yeah. Every
Go ahead.
everywhere around here is hiring. Everywhere.
Slow and steady steps.
Yep. Well, I don't really have anything more to add to that story. I tried to keep it, concise and to the point, but I thought it was an okay story.
I liked it. It was a good story.
So I think this has been a relatively successful mini cast. I think we can actually post this one. So I think let's cut it here. Closing statements.
Niggers.
We still have the numbers on our side to reclaim our nations.
I really should come up with a closing statement.
Gas the guys.
This has been Poalcast, mini episode, Poalminicast, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call this the reset, and it's been fun.